My name is Natalie Winslow, and I was 37 years old when my parents offered me $300,000 to rent the child they had erased. Not adopt, not know, not love. Rent. For one evening, they sat in my living room in Asheville, North Carolina, dressed like people who had never knocked on a door that might not open for them. My father, Charles Winslow, still wore his cufflinks, even though he was retired from the bank board. My mother, Margaret, had a silk scarf folded neatly at her throat and the same expression she used at church when someone's child misbehaved in public. 21 years had passed since I had last seen them. 21 years since I stood on their front porch in Savannah with a duffel bag, a swollen belly, and rain running down my face, while my father said, "You made yourself common. You are no longer ours." I was 16, 3 months pregnant, terrified, and that same night my parents had made me sign a document called a voluntary family separation agreement. Voluntary. That was the word my father's attorney used, while my hands shook so badly I could barely hold the pen. The agreement said I forfeited any claim to the Winslow estate. It said my parents had no financial, legal, or moral responsibility for me. It said any child born from my pregnancy would have no standing in the Winslow family line. Any child. My daughter had been erased before she had fingernails. I kept those papers. For 21 years, I kept everything. The agreement, the hospital bracelet, the old voicemail from my mother telling me never to call again, the photo my high school guidance counselor took of me standing under her porch light the night she found me crying in the rain. I kept it all not because I thought I would ever use it, but because proof was the only family heirloom they left me. Then last Tuesday, my parents appeared at my door. No apology, no trembling. "No, we have missed you." They came because they were hosting the Winslow Legacy Gala, their biggest charity event in 40 years. 300 guests, local press, a live stream through St. Mark's Episcopal Church, a tribute video about family, faith, and generational leadership. And apparently, they had been telling donors for months about their grandson, their brilliant grandson, their future doctor, their final proof that the Winslow bloodline remained spotless. The problem was simple. They did not have a grandson. They had a granddaughter, a 19-year-old daughter named Elena, who played cello, studied biomedical engineering, and knew exactly what her grandparents had done before she was born. My parents had read one magazine profile about me, seen the words "my child," and invented the rest. They had built a perfect grandson out of arrogance, poor reading comprehension, and reputation management. Now the gala was 1 week away, donors were asking questions, and they needed me to make their lie breathe. My father placed a cashier's check on my coffee table. $300,000. "Bring him to the gala," he said. 3 hours, some photographs, a brief introduction. Then you may return to your life. My mother leaned forward. "We are willing to be generous, Natalie. Generous." I looked at the check, then at the 2 people who had let me sleep on a teacher's sofa because their name mattered more than their daughter. Before I could answer, Elena came down the stairs wearing an old university sweatshirt, her dark curls tied up with a pencil, a textbook in one hand. "Mom," she said, "are these the people who threw you out?" My mother went white. My father blinked once. Then I watched him do what Charles Winslow had always done best: recalculate. "A granddaughter," he said slowly, as if the word were a business adjustment. "Well, that may still work." Elena looked at him. No anger at first, just a cold adult disbelief. Work for whom? Before I tell you what happened at the gala, I need to tell you about the night I disappeared. Savannah, Georgia, October 2003. Our house stood on Abercorn Street behind black iron gates and 2 magnolia trees my mother called historic, even though Dad had planted them after a landscaping consultant said old money required shade. From the outside, we were the perfect family. Charles Winslow was senior vice president at Atlantic Heritage Bank and chairman of the St. Mark's Charitable Foundation. Margaret Winslow chaired every committee that involved flowers, children, or reputation. My older brother Graham was 23 and already working in private equity in Atlanta. My older sister Vivian was 21, engaged to a medical resident, and spoke in the soft, expensive tone of women who expect waiters to understand allergies without writing them down. And then there was me, Natalie, the late child, the unexpected one. The one my mother introduced as our little surprise until I was old enough to understand she did not mean gift. I learned early that the Winslow family had a script. Graham would become wealthy. Vivian would marry well. I would remain pleasant, pretty, and quiet enough not to disturb the portrait. My father had one sentence he repeated at every graduation dinner, charity reception, and Christmas Eve toast. A name is built over generations and ruined in an afternoon. As a child, I thought he meant honesty mattered. He meant appearances did. I met Mateo Reyes at the public library, which was already a rebellion in my mother's eyes, because Winslows belonged to private study clubs, not county buildings with fluorescent lights. Mateo was 17. He worked weekends at his uncle's print shop and went to the public high school across town, the one my parents referred to as over there like it was an illness. He had grease under his fingernails from helping repair the delivery van. He also knew more about poetry than anyone at my school. We met in the aisle between biographies and Southern history when I dropped 3 books and he picked them up before I could apologize. "You read all that for fun?" he asked. "I read it to survive dinner conversations." He smiled. That was all it took. 2 people who felt invisible in different rooms recognizing each other in a library aisle. We dated secretly for 4 months. He never pushed me, never made me feel small, never acted impressed by the Winslow name, which might have been the first thing I loved about him. When I took the pregnancy test in the bathroom of a gas station on White Bluff Road, I was wearing my school uniform and shaking so hard the little plastic stick rattled against the sink. 2 pink lines. I told Mateo behind the library. He went pale, then took my hands. "I am scared," he said. "Me too, but I am here." At 16, those 4 words felt like a country. I wanted to believe him. I did believe him. But I knew my parents. I knew my father would not ask whether I was safe. I knew my mother would not ask whether I was loved. They would ask who knew. They would ask what church would say. They would ask how quickly the problem could be removed. I waited 3 days to tell them. Then I chose Sunday dinner because in my family, disasters were handled better when silverware was present. It was raining that night. Heavy October rain. The kind that turns porch lights into halos and gutters into instruments. Dinner was roast chicken, wild rice, green beans, almondine, and my mother's silence before I even spoke. Maybe she already knew. Mothers who do not listen still notice what can embarrass them. "I need to tell you something," I said. Dad did not look up from carving. "Can it wait?" Graham was visiting from Atlanta. Vivian was there with her fiancé, Preston. All of them looked at me. I placed both hands in my lap so no one would see them trembling. "I am pregnant." My mother's fork touched her plate. A tiny sound, like a bell before a funeral. Dad set down the carving knife. "Who is the father?" "His name is Mateo Reyes." No one spoke. "He works at his uncle's print shop. He is in school. He is kind." My father's face hardened with every sentence. "Reyes," he repeated. "From the public high school?" As if school district were a moral diagnosis. "Yes," Vivian whispered. "Oh, Natalie." Not concern, embarrassment with perfume. My mother stood. "How far along?" "Almost 11 weeks. Dad pushed back his chair. "We will call Dr. Feldman tomorrow." I am not ending the pregnancy. That was the first time in my life I had interrupted my father. The room changed. Graham looked at the table. Vivian touched her engagement ring. Preston stared at his water glass as if it contained instructions. My father's voice became quiet, dangerously polite. "You will not bring a scandal into this family. I am your family." "No," he said. "Just that. Number." My mother's face collapsed into something cold and pure. You have humiliated us. I am scared. You should be. That sentence would stay with me longer than the rain. Dad made phone calls from his study. I sat in the dining room while the food went cold. No one touched me. No one asked if I had a coat. Graham eventually said, maybe if you do what Dad says, this can be handled. Handled. I looked at my brother. This is a baby. Vivian closed her eyes. Natalie, do not make this harder. By 10 o'clock, my father's attorney arrived. Mr. Leland. I had seen him at Christmas parties. He smelled like wet wool and expensive aftershave. He placed papers on the kitchen table. The voluntary family separation agreement. I was 16. I could not legally rent an apartment. But somehow, with my parents and their attorney watching, I was old enough to sign myself out of a family. If you choose to continue this pregnancy, my father said you do so without us. My mother stood by the door, her hand on the knob, my suitcase at her feet. She had packed for me. Not much. School clothes. 2 sweaters. My old sneakers. No photos. No baby blanket from the attic. Nothing that suggested I had ever been loved enough to keep. I signed, not because I agreed, because I understood I was being removed whether I signed or not. At 10:43 p.m., my mother opened the front door. Rain blew into the foyer. She pointed outside. I looked at Graham, then Vivian. Neither moved. Preston looked ashamed. That did not help me. Dad said go. I stepped onto the porch. The door closed behind me. I stood under the magnolia trees with one suitcase 11 weeks pregnant, watching warm light through the windows of a house that had decided I was colder than its reputation. Then I heard a voice across the street. Natalie, Mrs. Alma Bennett, my high school guidance counselor, was standing under an umbrella at the curb. She had followed me home earlier that week because she said I looked like a sentence that ended wrong. I had laughed at that then. Now she was the only adult standing in the rain. Come with me, she said. I did. Alma Bennett saved my life before Mateo could reach me. She drove me to her small brick house near Forsyth Park and wrapped me in a towel while calling every safe adult she knew. Mateo came 20 minutes later with his uncle Raphael. He was soaked, frantic, shaking. When he saw me, he dropped to his knees in Alma's kitchen and pressed his face against my hands. I am here, he kept saying. I believed him. For 2 months, we stayed with Alma while adults made calls around us. Not my parents. Never them. Alma called social services. Raphael called a cousin in Raleigh who had a spare room. Mateo's mother, who lived in Texas and had complicated grief of her own, mailed a money order for $90 and a note that said, God forgive the people who made you children carry this alone. I kept that note too. We moved to Raleigh in January. A room over a bakery. It smelled like yeast and sugar at dawn and frying oil at night. Mateo worked at a repair garage. I transferred to an alternative high school, then finished my diploma through night classes after Elena was born. Elena Lucia Reyes Winslow came into the world on May 18, 2004, at 3:12 in the morning. 6 pounds 9 ounces, a furious cry. A fist already closed like she had arrived, prepared to object. Mateo held her first, then placed her on my chest. She is real, he whispered. I said yes. Because after months of being treated like a mistake, I needed to hear that something from my body could be real and good and impossible to erase. My parents did not call. I sent a birth announcement. No response. Alma sent them a photo. The envelope came back unopened. Return to sender. By Elena's first birthday, I stopped sending anything. Not because it stopped hurting. Because I was tired of putting my child's face in front of people who had already chosen not to see it. Mateo and I did not have an easy life. We had love. Love is not rent. He worked long hours. I took classes in bookkeeping and later learned web design from library computers because the internet did not ask how old I had been when I became a mother. We lived in rooms too small for our hope, shared one phone, counted quarters for laundry, ate rice and beans until Elena called them again food. But our home had laughter. It had Mateo dancing badly with a baby on his hip. It had Alma's letters taped to the fridge. It had Elena's drawings on every wall because I swore no child of mine would wonder whether there was room for her picture. Matteo died when Elena was 6. A shop accident. A lifted engine. One broken chain. One moment. People say accidents happen fast. They do not. The moment happens fast. The after lasts for years. I was 23, a widow in every way except legal paperwork because we had kept saying we would marry when we could afford a party. The garage owner's insurance paid $10,000. $10,000 for the man who had held my hand behind the library and said, "I am here." I used $3,000 for the funeral, $2,000 to move, the rest to survive badly. For a year I was not brave. I was functional. There is a difference. I worked at a print shop during the day, built websites at night, and took any design jobs someone would trust me with. Flyers, church bulletins, small business logos, menus for restaurants that paid in cash and food. I discovered I had a talent for turning stories into images people believed. That is how my company began. Not with ambition. With groceries. By 27, I had a small studio. By 33 employees. By 34, my branding firm Harbor and Light had clients across the Southeast. We specialized in ethical storytelling for nonprofit schools and small businesses trying to look as real as they were. A magazine in Raleigh profiled me when I was 35. The headline was, "From teen mother to founder Natalie Winslow built a business by refusing to disappear." I told the journalists the truth. Most of it. Pregnant at 16. Disowned. Raised my daughter. Lost her father. Built a company. I did not name my parents. Not out of mercy. Out of ownership. My story did not need their names to be true. But the internet is a house with too many windows. Someone in Savannah read the article. Someone recognized the name. Someone at St. Mark's asked my mother why she had never mentioned her successful daughter and grandchild. And because Margaret Winslow would rather invent a person than admit a wound, she created a grandson. According to my brother Graham, who called me the day after my parents visited, the grandson began as a small lie. At a garden club luncheon, someone asked if the child in the magazine was a boy or a girl. My mother said a boy. Then someone asked his age. 19, she said. Then someone asked what he was doing. Pre-med. By the time the rumor reached the church foundation board, my fictional son had become Bennett Charles Winslow, a scholarship student with plans for medical school, deeply respectful of his grandparents, soon to be reunited with the family after years of complicated distance. Complicated distance. That is what people call abandonment when they wore pearls while doing it. My father did not correct her. He improved the lie. Said Bennett had his grandfather's discipline. Said the Winslow name would continue in public service. Said the Legacy Gala would be the right time to welcome him home. When Graham told me this, I was standing in my kitchen staring at Elena's backpack on a chair. My daughter was upstairs studying for an organic chemistry exam she swore was invented by bitter people. "Why are you telling me?" I asked my brother. Graham was quiet. His voice sounded older than 50. "Because I watched you walk out in the rain." "Yes, I have watched that night for 21 years. That is not the same as living it." "I know." "Good." At least he knew that much. He told me he and Vivian would be at the gala. He told me the event would be live-streamed because the church wanted to celebrate 50 years of Winslow's service. He told me there would be a tribute video donors, the mayor pastors, old school administrators, and several journalists from local society pages. They are planning to introduce the grandson during the family legacy portion, he said. I almost laughed. What grandson? Natalie. I know. Are you coming? I looked toward the stairs. Elena was humming while she studied. She had her father's habit of making sound when concentrating. I think so, I said. Graham exhaled. If you do, I will stand with you. Why now? He did not answer quickly. That was good. Prepared apologies are usually made of plastic. Because my oldest son is 16, he said finally, And last week I imagined him standing outside in rain with no one opening the door. His voice broke. I understood too late? Yes, he had. But late truth is still truth if it arrives willing to work. Do not warn them, I said. I won't. Do not soften it. I won't. And Graham, yes, you are not the hero in the story. He was silent. Then he said, I know.
Oh.
Elena wanted to go. I did not ask her immediately. I wanted to protect her from the room that had rejected her before she existed. But she stood in my office doorway that night, arms crossed, the old voluntary family separation agreement in her hand. You were not going to hide this from me, were you? I looked at the paper. You went through the lockbox. You told me where the key was when I turned 18. For emergencies. This feels like one. She sat across from me and read the clause aloud. The Winslow family bears no legal, financial, or moral responsibility to Natalie and Winslow or any issue born of her conduct. Any issue. The word hit differently in my daughter's voice. Issue, not child, not granddaughter, not Elena. She set the page down. They wrote me like a problem on a balance sheet. I swallowed. Yes, and now they want a grandson. Yes. Did they ask your favorite color? What? When they came, she said, did they ask anything about you? Your life, your company, me. Did they ask what your favorite color is now? I thought about it. Number. They had examined my furniture, my house, my success. They had offered money. They had never asked one human question. Number. Elena nodded. Then I want to go. Why? Because I have spent my whole life knowing they chose reputation over us. I want to look at them while everyone else learns it too. That room could be cruel. Maybe. You do not owe them your pain. I know. I waited. She leaned forward. But I owe myself my presence. There are moments as a mother when your child says something so much stronger than anything you taught them that all you can do is be grateful you did not break what came through you. Okay, I said. We go together. She reached for my hand. Always. For the next 4 days, we prepared. Not revenge. Documentation. Alma Bennett sent the photo she had taken that night. 16-year-old me under her porch light, soaked through one hand on my belly, a duffel bag at my feet. She also agreed to come to Savannah. I have been waiting 21 years to testify with better shoes, she said. Alma was 81 now, still terrifying, still kind. Mateo's uncle Raphael sent copies of the old money orders, the letter from Mateo's mother, and a photo of Mateo holding newborn Elena in the hospital. I scanned the voluntary family separation agreement, the returned birth announcement, the voicemail transcript from my mother, the article that started the lie, the cashier's check my father had left when I refused to pick it up. $300,000. I copied it before mailing it back. Elena made slides. She was frighteningly good at them. Black background. Clean white text. No drama, just facts. November 2003, pregnant at 16. Same night removed from home. 3 days later, legal erasure letter mailed. May 2004, Elena born. 2004 to 2024. No contact. 2024, Winslow family invents grandson for gala. She titled the deck, The Actual Legacy. I stared at it. She looked back. What? You are Mateo's daughter. I know. She smiled. You like that? I do. The night before the gala, I drove to Savannah for the first time in 21 years. The city looked both familiar and false. Spanish moss, brick sidewalks, gas lamps, beauty laid over old grief like lace over a bruise. We stayed in a hotel downtown. Elena fell asleep quickly because she had inherited Mateo's gift for rest. I did not. At midnight, I opened the lockbox again, held the agreement. The paper had yellowed slightly. My father's signature remained sharp. Charles Whitaker, Winslow III. A name built over generations and ruined in an afternoon. I wondered if he ever heard his own sentence echo back at him. Then I placed the document in my bag and slept for 3 hours. The Winslow Legacy Gala was held in the ballroom of the Hamilton Club. Of course it was. My parents had belonged there for decades. Crystal chandeliers, gold chairs, white tablecloths, a stage framed with magnolia branches, a banner behind the podium. 50 years of service, faith, and family. Elena stood beside me at the entrance in a midnight blue dress. I wore black, not mourning, clarity. Alma Bennett arrived on Rafael Reyes's arm because she said she liked making old rooms nervous. Graham and Vivian were already inside. My brother saw me first. His face changed. Pain, recognition, shame. He walked toward us. For a second, I saw the 23-year-old who had stayed upstairs. Then the 50-year-old man stopped in front of me. "Natalie," he said. "Graham." He looked at Elena. His eyes filled. "Elena, I am your Uncle Graham. I have no right to say that with confidence, but I hope someday." "Start with my name," Elena said. He nodded. "Elena." Vivian came next. She had aged beautifully and unhappily. Some people polish themselves to avoid looking inward. She did not hug me. Good. Instead, she said, "I'm sorry I did not come downstairs." I looked at her. "Did you want to?" "Yes." "Why didn't you?" Her mouth trembled. "Because I was afraid of becoming you." That was the first honest thing Vivian had ever said to me. I nodded once. "Then tonight, do not be afraid in the same direction." She closed her eyes. "I won't." Inside the ballroom, my parents were on stage near the podium. My mother wore silver. My father wore black tie. They looked smaller than memory, but memory is a liar about height. The room was full. Bankers, judges, church elders, donors, old neighbors, people who had eaten my mother's lemon cakes while believing her youngest daughter lived in Europe. The livestream camera was positioned near the front. A young technician wore headphones and looked bored. He would not be bored for long. My parents had not seen us yet. The tribute video began. Soft piano. Photos of my parents cutting ribbons, shaking hands, smiling with bishops and mayors. Then family photos. Graham graduating. Vivian's wedding. Grandchildren at Easter. No Natalie, no Elena. Then my father stepped to the podium. He smiled at the room. The same smile he wore before telling teenage me to leave. Family, he began, is not merely what we are given. It is what we protect. Elena's hand found mine. I stood. The room did not stop at once. Rooms never do. One table noticed, then another. Whispers moved like wind across water. My mother saw me first. Her face lost color so quickly I thought she might faint. My father followed her gaze. He stopped mid-sentence. The microphone carried his silence through the ballroom. I walked toward the stage, Elena beside me, Alma behind us. Graham and Vivian moved from the side and joined us near the steps. My father gripped the podium. Natalie? There it was. My name and his voice after 21 years. It sounded like a key in a rusted lock. I stepped onto the stage. "Hello, Dad." The technician, bless him, did not cut the feed. I turned toward the audience. "My name is Natalie Winslow. I am Charles and Margaret Winslow's youngest daughter." A murmur rolled through the ballroom. "The daughter many of you were told moved abroad 21 years ago." My mother whispered, "Do not." I looked at her. "You said that once before." She flinched. Then I faced the room again. I did not move abroad. On October 19th, 2003, I told my parents I was pregnant. I was 16 years old. That same night, they removed me from their home in the rain and made me sign a legal agreement, cutting me and any child born from my pregnancy out of the Winslow family. Someone gasped. A woman near the front covered her mouth. Pastor Caldwell, who had baptized me as a baby, stood slowly. I removed the agreement from my folder and held it up. This is the document. Voluntary Family Separation Agreement. It states that my parents bear no legal, financial, or moral responsibility for me or, quote, any issue born of my conduct. I heard the word ripple. Issue. Elena took the microphone from my hand. "My name is Elena Reyes Winslow," she said. "I am the issue." The ballroom became absolutely silent. Not quiet, silent. My grandparents have spent months telling some of you about a grandson named Bennett. He does not exist. They invented him after reading an article about my mother and assuming I was male. They wanted a grandson they could show off tonight. What they had was me. My father stepped forward. Elena, this is not the way. She turned. You do not get to use my name like you know me. He stopped. Good. She continued. You could have known me. You could have known my father before he died. You could have known my birthday, my favorite music, my college, the fact that I hate mushrooms and love anatomy labs. You chose not to know any of that. And now you do not get to present me as a legacy. My mother was crying now, softly, carefully, like tears might still serve her if arranged well enough. I took the microphone back. Last week, my parents came to my home and offered me $300,000 to bring their imaginary grandson to this gala for photographs. I held up a copy of the cashier's check. The room erupted. My father reached for the microphone. Graham stepped between us. No, my brother said. One word. 21 years late. Still it counted. Vivian moved to my other side. She is telling the truth, Vivian said, voice shaking but audible. I was in the house that night. So was Graham. We watched her leave. We said nothing. That is our shame, not hers. Alma Bennett stood at the edge of the stage. Her voice did not need a microphone. I picked Natalie up in the rain that night. She was 16 years old, pregnant, shaking and carrying one bag. I took a photograph because I knew powerful people rewrite stories. I have the picture, I have the date, I have the truth. The technician finally looked toward my father, waiting for a signal. My father gave none. Perhaps he could not move. Perhaps for the first time in his life, Charles Winslow had found a room where control did not answer when called. Pastor Caldwell stepped toward the stage. Charles, he said, voice trembling, is this true? My father looked at the crowd. The donors, the mayor, the church elders, the people whose respect he had preserved at the cost of a child. He looked at my mother. She shook her head once, not because it was not true, because truth remained to her the greater scandal. My father opened his mouth. It was a difficult time. That sentence almost made me laugh. A difficult time for him. Not the girl in the rain. Not the child born into a rented room. Not Mateo working night shifts until his hands cracked. Not Elena growing up with a blank space where grandparents could have been. I looked at him. No, Dad, it was a difficult life. You made a choice in one night and we lived inside it for 21 years. He had no answer. The live stream comments were flashing on a monitor beside the camera. Is this real? They invented a grandson. I went to St. Mark's with them. That poor girl. Somebody saved this live. I did not look long. This was not about going viral. It was about not disappearing. I turned to the room. I am not here for money. I mailed the cashier's check back this morning. I am not here to contest a will or fight for a trust. My daughter and I built our life without Winslow approval. I founded Harbor and Light in Raleigh. We have 40 employees now. Elena is a biomedical engineering student. We did not need their name to become real. Elena squeezed my hand. I am here because they tried to buy my silence. I am here because they used a fictional grandson to repair a reputation they damaged themselves. I am here because lies grow when everyone agrees to be polite around them. I looked at my parents. If you continue to tell false stories about me or my daughter, every document will be released. The agreement, the returned birth announcement, the photograph, the voicemail, the cashier's check, all of it. My mother spoke finally. You are humiliating us. Her voice carried through the microphone I still held. No, I said. I am telling the truth in the room where you tried to sell a lie. For once, she had no correction. I handed the microphone to Pastor Caldwell. Then I turned to leave. Behind me, the ballroom exploded into sound. Questions. Chairs moving. Phones ringing. Someone crying. Someone cursing softly. A gala built on legacy collapsing under the weight of one daughter's records. At the stairs, my father said, "Natalie." I stopped. Not for him. For myself. He looked old suddenly. "I am sorry," he said. My mother made a small, wounded sound. I studied his face. There were tears in his eyes. Maybe regret. Maybe fear. Maybe the grief of a man who had confused reputation with oxygen and suddenly found himself unable to breathe. "I hope someday you understand what sorry requires," I said. Then I walked out with my daughter. The fallout did not destroy my parents in one night. Real consequences are slower than stories. But the first cracks appeared before midnight. The live stream was saved by at least 40 people before the church deleted it. Clips spread. Local reporters called. The Savannah Morning Ledger ran the headline, "Winslow Legacy Gala Interrupted by Daughter's Claim of Two-Decade Family Erasure." Claim. Journalists love words that let facts stand in the rain a little longer. By the next morning, Alma had given her statement. Graham confirmed the story. Vivian confirmed it too. Pastor Caldwell announced that Charles Winslow would step down from the St. Mark's Foundation Board pending review. 2 donors withdrew gifts publicly. 3 more did so quietly. The Hamilton Club called it an unfortunate private matter, which meant they were delighted it had not happened at another venue. My father's bank friends stopped answering some calls. My mother's garden club sent flowers and no invitation to the next luncheon. Reputation is fragile when it has been fed on silence. My phone filled with messages, some from strangers. I was a teen mom, too. My parents also made me disappear. Your daughter speaking broke me. Some from old classmates. I always wondered where you went. I am sorry I believed them. And then one from Mateo's Uncle Raphael. Your boy would be proud. I sat on the hotel bed and cried harder at that than anything else. Elena climbed in beside me and put her head on my shoulder. Dad would have hated that room, she said. Yes, he would have made a joke, probably about the chandeliers. She smiled. Then we both laughed and cried until our room service coffee went cold. Graham came to Asheville 3 weeks later, alone. He did not bring his wife, did not bring excuses, just a box. Inside were things from my childhood. A ribbon from a school art fair, a photo of me at 8 holding a lopsided clay bowl, a Christmas ornament with my name on it that had disappeared from the family tree after I left. I kept these, he said. I looked at him. Why? Because I was too cowardly to call you and too guilty to throw you away completely. That was ugly. It was also honest. I respected honest more than beautiful. We sat on my porch while Elena was at class. He told me about his sons, his marriage, his years of performing Winslow perfection until one of his boys came home from school crying because he had gotten a B on a math test and thought his grandfather would be disappointed. That was the first time I heard Dad's voice coming out of my mouth, Graham said. It scared me. Good. He nodded. Yes. He asked if he could know Elena. I said you can begin by sending her an email. Not a dramatic one. Not a family legacy one. Just human. He did. She waited 4 days to answer. Good girl. Vivian took longer. Her apology arrived as a letter. 12 pages. Neat handwriting. Some excuses, some truth. I read it once, then set it aside. I did not owe everyone immediate access because they finally found language for regret. My mother called in December. I let it ring. She left a voicemail. Natalie, it is your mother. I know you think I am a monster. I deleted it, not because I was cruel, because she still thought the central issue was how I saw her, not what she had done. My father sent a letter in January. Short, handwritten, Natalie. I have read the agreement every day since the gala. I do not know how I signed it and lived with myself. That is not true. I know how. I valued my name more than my child. I am sorry for the rain. I am sorry for the door. I am sorry for Elena. I am sorry for Mateo. I am sorry for every year after. I do not ask for forgiveness. I am trying to learn how to tell the truth without needing it to save me. Dad, I read it twice. then placed it in the lockbox. Not beside the separation agreement. In a different folder. Not repair, but evidence that something might have begun. The following spring, Harbor and Light launched a new program. We called it the Front Porch Project. Branding websites and practical marketing support for young mothers, foster alumni, and women rebuilding after family rejection. No glossy pity, no poverty branding. Dignity first, always. The first client was a 19-year-old mother named Sasha who made hand-poured candles in her aunt's kitchen while studying for her GED. She came to our office with her baby on her hip and a backpack full of labels she had printed at a library. "I cannot pay much," she said. I looked at Elena, who was helping that summer before research internship began. Elena smiled. "Good," she said. "We are very expensive for people with money." Sasha laughed. So did I. We built her a logo, a simple website, a story that did not ask customers to pity her but invited them to see her work. 3 months later, a local boutique picked up her candles. She sent me a photo of the first shelf display. I cried in my office. People think justice is a public fall. Sometimes it is a young woman seeing her work placed at eye level. 1 year after the gala, Elena and I hosted Thanksgiving in Asheville. Not because we had always done it, because we could choose what to build next. Our table seated 14. Alma Bennett sat at one end wearing a purple sweater and correcting everyone's grammar. Rafael Reyes brought tamales and a framed photo of Mateo that we placed near the candles. Graham came with his wife and sons. Vivian came alone. She brought pie and humility, neither of which she had made from scratch. Eleanor Vance, my mentor, came with wine and a warning that she would not discuss fonts before dessert. My parents were not there. Not yet, maybe not ever. That was not the point. Before dinner, Elena stood. She held up a glass of sparkling cider. When I was little, she said, I used to ask why I did not have grandparents. Mom told me the truth in pieces I could carry. She never made me hate them. She just made sure I knew their choice was not my fault. She looked at me. I used to think being erased meant something was missing from me. Now I know it meant something was missing from them. The room went silent. Alma wiped her eyes. Raphael looked at Mateo's photo. Graham bowed his head. Elena continued. To Mom, who built a life so real that no one else's lie could survive inside it. I could not speak, so I lifted my glass. Everyone did. And for the first time I understood that I was not gathering people to replace the family I lost. I was gathering the people who had always belonged in the life I built. If you are listening to this because your family chose its image over your safety, I want you to hear me. You are not a scandal. You are not the 5 minutes that ruined a name. You are not the problem they wrote into a document whispered about in church halls or edited out of family photographs. You are a person, and people are not erased just because someone with better stationery says so. Keep the proof if you need to. The letter, the text, the photo, the memory. Not because you must live inside the pain forever. Because one day someone may try to tell your story in a way that makes them innocent. And you deserve evidence that you existed before they found a convenient lie. My name is Natalie Reyes Winslow. I kept the name Winslow not because they earned it, because I survived it. Elena uses both names too. Reyes for the father who stayed. Winslow for the history that failed to define her. My parents still live in Savannah. My father writes sometimes. My mother has not learned the difference between shame and remorse. Maybe she will. Maybe she will not. I have stopped building my peace around other people's growth. Every October when it rains, I still remember the porch, the suitcase, the door. But I also remember Alma's umbrella, Mateo's hands, Elena's first cry, the first invoice I ever sent, the first office I rented, the first time my daughter stood on a stage and named herself without asking permission. The story did not end in the rain. It started there. And if you are standing in your own rain right now, holding one bag and a life no one prepared you for, please believe me. The door that closed behind you may not be the end. It may be the sound your real life makes when it begins.